Welcome to the Spirit of a Badass, where we celebrate stories of courage, hope, and resiliency. I am your host, Alecia Jacobson. Okay, before we get into today's episode, I have to shout out someone who's not just a sponsor of the podcast, but one of my favorite humans, Becky from Wilson Aesthetic Company, located in Oregon. If you know me, you know I don't share things I don't 100% believe in, and this one is something special because it's built by my bestie. Wilson Aesthetic Company is all about enhancing what you already have, not changing who you are. It's thoughtful and rooted in education and safety, which is exactly how she approaches everything. From neurotoxins and fillers to skin treatments that support long-term results, every appointment is customized and never cookie cutter. If you've ever been curious about aesthetic treatments or just want to feel like the most refreshed version of yourself, check out Wilson Aesthetic Company. I trust her with my face, and that says everything. You can find Wilson Aesthetic Company on Instagram or book a consultation directly. Tell her I sent you and get $25 off your first treatment. Hello. Welcome to today's episode. I am so glad that you are here. Sometimes people reach out to me to be on an episode, or I just kind of peruse around and I find people that I'm like, oh, that would be a really cool conversation, or people ask me about things. My guest today, I went searching for because I think the topic today, one, I am fully aware that I have chosen inappropriate clothing because I should be wearing a tank top because I know I'm going to get hot on this one. But I did some searching and I found my guest today through a person that I respect very, very much. So I truly know that today is going to be just an awesome episode. We're going to be talking about anger, how to use anger. I'll share some conversations that I've had recently and some kind of eye-opening things. I talk to so many women, and when I hear something, I'm like, shit, I haven't ever heard this. So just some really interesting things that I have had come up recently. And I wanted to talk to an expert on anger. So I have an expert for you today. And I feel like this is going to be like a notebook worthy one, or one where I get messages like, hey, I'm on my third listen. So take some free brain space time. I don't know what you're doing, but I really think this one is going to settle in your heart. And I really hope that this does some changing for you because it's a very worthy topic right now. My guest today is Bronwyn Schweigerdt. She is a licensed psychotherapist and anger expert. She helps her clients and podcast listeners come back to life through integrating with their inner child, dislodging shame, and healing their relationship with anger. Her podcast is Angry at the Right Things. Bronwyn is the founder of the Center for Anger and Integration, which educates mental health professionals about anger and integration. Welcome, Bronwyn.
Thank you. Wow. I feel like I have a lot to live up to right now.
So I'll tell you that a couple of things came up that I'm like looking on Instagram for anger. And when I searched for anger, or you really search anything for anger, it was very negative. And I'm like, that's not, it was just a negative lens. And I think anger gets a really bad rap. And this was probably early January, late December. I'm scrolling on TikTok as I do. And Alanis Morissette, she was being interviewed, and she was being interviewed on anger specifically. And she said, anger is the underpinning of all my activism, or something similar to that. And she was sharing how anger gets a bad rap and can be such a positive catalyst for change. And if we can harness that in the right way, that it can really just be so helpful and not something to be afraid of. I think that's such a worthy topic because with my own clients and just in my own life, people seem to be very fearful of the anger within them and then kind of around, because obviously anger can also be used on the other side of that as not a good tool. So if you could first give us a little bit of your background of the work that you do and just anger in general, like a little overview, because I think there's different kinds of anger, but I don't know much about anger. And I think that's a really interesting thing because it seems like, there's that wheel of emotions and it's just this tiny little square, or not even a square. I don't know what shape that is, but there's so much depth to it. And there's so many different flavors to the anger.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, I'll give you a little background on me, which will help. So I didn't go looking to become a psychotherapist. I actually myself fell into a very, very profound depressive episode and went looking for a therapist to help me. And for the life of God, I could not find someone who was a good enough therapist to help me make sense of myself, to be a mirror for me, to say, what is going on? Why am I having all these weird symptoms all of a sudden? So I went, to multiple therapists, and I sat on the couch. And every time I thought, you know what, Bronwyn, you are hardly functional right now, but I still think you would make a better therapist than this person. And so after a few of those, I decided I'm going to go back to school and get another master's degree and become that therapist. So I did. So in hindsight, though, what all of those therapists that I went to see did not have was any kind of healthy relationship or understanding of anger. And the other irony is that depressive episode that I went through another very, very severe one about 2 years later. I see now in retrospect, both of those depressive episodes from hell were absolutely the outcome of my own suppressed anger, or what we call dissociated anger. So, if I had a therapist who was, savvy about this at the time, and let's say she said, you know what, Bronwyn, when that happened and you looked to your husband for empathy and there wasn't any, I wonder if you don't feel really angry about that because you really needed him and he just no-showed on you emotionally. And if I had that, I would have said, oh my God, yeah, like I actually am really angry. And that would have saved me from so much needless suffering. I mean, needless, where I was a horrible mother to my daughter, so it caused a lot of suffering to her. We've had to repair that. There's just so many outcomes, so many side effects of all that. So my second very severe depressive episode, same thing. It was my own dissociated anger. If I had had someone to say, you can say no to your supervisor, like it's actually bullshit that he is overriding your request that you don't want to work with this population because you don't feel ready. Like say no or find somewhere else. If I had had someone to help me feel angry at his just complete like denial of my request of my own limitations, that anger would be catalyzed out of my body into a boundary and said, you know what? I'm not going to work here. This isn't a good fit. Right. And that would have saved me years of needless suffering because that depressive episode was really long and very severe. So, and then I was actually unable to work for quite a period. But when I went back to work as a therapist, I'm hearing the same things with these clients, like their anxiety. I'm seeing this connection. I'm connecting all these dots. Their anxiety, their panic attack, their mania, their psychosis, their somatic issues like headaches and digestive illnesses and insomnia, their vertigo, all these things. The underlying dot is their own dissociated anger. And so when we dissociate from our anger, when we don't have a healthy relationship with our anger, it doesn't just dissipate on its own when we talk ourselves out of it. When we say, no, it's fine. I'm not angry. Let's look on the other side. Let's look at where they're coming from. When we talk ourselves out of it, it's still there, but it's not able to dissipate. So it stagnates inside of us and it makes us sick as a result.
Damn.
So
yes, I'm having like this collide of all of these thoughts and things happening at the same time.
Yeah.
There was one time I was working out. I have I said, I have a lot of anger in me and I let it out. And then I'm like, no, I'm just going to start letting it go. I got to figure out how to let this anger go. And then I had this kind of aha moment where I was like, no, I can't just let it go. Because I was doing yoga and all these things and it was flowing through me. But I was like, wait, no, this is kind of like a wave. I have to ride it. Like there is no letting go of it. I can release it a little bit, but it's going to kind of rise like the tide and then it's going to lower. And I have to sort of bob like one of those buoys kind of with it instead of trying it because I was fighting it. Like, I don't want to feel this. I have noticed that there are some folks that are afraid of anger, where
Yes.
it's like a bad thing. I'm guessing it comes from something that they have learned where it's not something they're supposed to be experiencing. But how can they, one, recognize that and start to sort of, I look at anger, maybe it was in that movie, have you like Inside Out, where that talks about the emotions. Like anger to me feels like you can play with it a little bit. Like you can take it outside of yourself and sort of see it. Like, how does it not get shoved down if this is like a new idea for them?
Yeah. So I will say our relationship to anger is usually formed very early in our childhood and very implicitly, unconsciously. So I would say in the first few years, like when we differentiate during what we call the terrible twos, if we have a parent who doesn't understand, which most parents don't, and throughout history, almost no parents have understood the importance of the child's differentiation. They don't understand, like, this is psychologically really critical for that child to see that they are their own distinct person, to push away, to say, no, I do it, mine. Like, that's a good thing. And historically, that is not a good thing. And then a lot of parents just don't have what we call ego strength to actually let the child push away and differentiate too. So between those two things, what happens is children will end up feeling like they're going to be abandoned because suddenly mom's voice is like more clinical, it's just colder. They feel like kind of a silent treatment, or they get shamed. Maybe they get a timeout. Maybe the voice gets raised, all of those things. So a couple of things are happening. They are learning, okay, my differentiation, my anger, my boundaries equal abandonment. And that is terrifying because I cannot survive without an attachment figure. So I'm going to dissociate, right? And they're also learning that their anger is shameful. My anger, causes me shame because you're rejecting me in some way. And they're also simultaneously learning I'm responsible for my parents' feelings, right? Instead of I'm responsible for my feelings, I'm responsible to the parent, but not for the parent. And so that creates like this codependency, the beginnings of codependency, where I'm feeling responsible for everyone else's feelings but my own, because we can't do both. We cannot simultaneously be responsible for our feelings and believe we're responsible for someone else's.
That's a big piece right there. Mm-hmm. You can't do them at the same time.
No, we can't.
So yes, I both grew up and parented, at least my first batch. I have two different, I have older kids and then I have younger. We're not taught these things. There's unless you go, and I've been in therapy forever. I love it. It's like one of my favorite things ever. Still don't know these things. Still don't know how to regulate in those moments. A little better now, but you're being so flooded that then that comes out. So now you have all these adults running around here, not knowing what the fuck we're doing. So how do we sort of backpedal a little bit? Or I know some people are, yes, I'm game for therapy or not, but what are some things that people can do to sort of have the understanding of this and then start to sort of, I don't know if it's reparenting or inner child, that I'm unfamiliar with that, but what do we do?
Yeah. So we reparent ourselves really. And that we can call that self-attachment, where we're attaching to ourselves. That's really powerful, working with the inner child. And really what we're doing is unlearning these false beliefs that are so detrimental, right? What's important is that we're dislodging that shame because, you kind of inferred that maybe you have not done well with the differentiating kid. Same here. And it triggers us as parents. It triggers shame for us. And so if we have shame, we're not going to be the parent our kids need. And we're going to pass that shame along to them. And then they're going to do that with their kids. So really the goal to having a healthy relationship with ourselves, to having a healthy relationship with our anger, is dislodging shame. Because so anger, you inferred that a lot of us see that as bad. We were conditioned as children to see anger as bad. Anger is actually inherently good because it's an emotion, and babies are born into the world with the full gamut of emotion, including lots of anger. And man, they don't just get hungry, they get hangry. Like they don't let you know they need something without a lot of anger, right? It's so like they're so related. And that is very triggering for a parent. If we have a lot of shame, we will feel really rejected by our kids, by their angry, hungry cry. And so we will then reject them back or just not attune to them very well. And then that, creates a lot of suffering for them. So that's anger, but anger is an emotion, meaning it is native to humans, God-given or whatever you want to call that. It's good. And it is there, just like the name, to elicit motion, emotion. It's there to move us. Like, what do I need right now when I feel this anger in my chest? Oh, what does this anger need? It needs to be assertive and say, hey, Alecia, we said we'd meet at this time and it's 15 minutes later than that time. And this has been the third time this has happened. What's up? What's up? That's me channeling that anger out of my body, letting it move out of me. Do you feel like I'm angry? No, I'm just asking a question, looking for, understanding, but it is me being responsible with my anger in the moment, right? It really is. So it doesn't have to be an eruption for me to channel that anger out, but that is anger as an emotion to move me forward, to have a boundary, to bring about accountability. Shame is not an emotion. A lot of people think it is. Babies are not born into the world with shame. It is not native to humans at all. It comes from other humans. Shame is a social construct, really.
Yeah.
And it's not good. There's nothing good about it. There's nothing inherently beneficial at all. Nothing. In fact, it's the opposite of good. It is inherently bad because shame doesn't move us. It actually makes us stuck. It debilitates. It just freezes us a lot of times, like fight, flight, or freeze. Like that's shame. Shame is what causes trauma. If we didn't have shame, I don't think we'd have trauma, honestly. So shame is also a liar. It tells us you are all bad. There's no like human spectrum of, hey, I made a mistake. I can learn from this. That's okay. No, shame says you can't be human. You're all bad. And now you have to prove otherwise, right? So it's this extreme all or nothing. It's a liar and it distorts reality. And it's a belief system. It's a lot of things. So we need to dislodge shame in order to have a healthy relationship to ourselves. And what's really interesting is I work a lot with the body, like the somatic with my clients. So I believe that our core self really lives in our gut. I really have come to see that. And the crazy thing is that shame also shows up in the gut, like almost 100% of the time. That's where shame lodges. And when we dislodge that shame, there's nothing blocking us from our core self anymore. It's like we come back to ourselves. And so I'll give you just an example. 4 or 5 years ago, I was just kind of processing a lot of things and I went for a run and I was at a stoplight. And for some reason, I just closed my eyes and I just pictured little 10-year-old Bronwyn at the dining room table where every night her father would just mock her and just ridicule her every night at dinner. And I pictured my adult self going to her, getting down on her level, looking her in the eyes and saying, you know what, little Bronwyn, I know how much shame you feel. I don't blame you. This is happening every night. But you know what? I need you to see something. I need you to see things as I do. Let's take all that shame and let's put it in this big cardboard box and let's give it back to Mike because it's actually all his. Turns out none of it is ours. It's all his. And so I did that. And then I came back to little Bronwyn and I said, little Bronwyn, there's nothing inherently flawed with you. You're just a 10-year-old kid and you're good. And I see your goodness. And maybe you don't have parents that are able to see that goodness. Maybe your goodness is threatening to them, but I see it and I am pleased with you. And I'm sorry that it's taken me so long to rescue you from them, but I'm here now and I'm wanting to win back your trust in me because you matter and your feelings matter. They matter to me. And now we'll feel them together because what's shareable is bearable. We don't have to feel them alone anymore. And your anger is valid. And we're going to feel really angry at our dad who would do this to his daughter every single night.
Dang. So are you saying that because you said it's dislodged, like that is essentially you have, I'm kind of seeing this as like a hierarchy, but also like a path of you have the anger kind of above and then the shame is below it and like a stone and kind of dislodging it a little bit. Was that part of the dislodging of that
Yeah,
shame?
definitely the stone and dislodging. I did feel the anger prior to that, but a lot of people don't feel anger at all. And it isn't until the shame is dislodged that they can connect with that healthy anger. And it's
Oh,
like they're coming back to themselves. So, like I said, like they're reconnecting with their gut. And
yeah.
I will say, after that happened, I felt like a different person. Like, and I had to do it other times with like my mother and different,
Yep.
experiences I've had. Like I call them imprinting experiences, imprinting memories. But that single one was so powerful. I felt like all of a sudden I could trust myself. And I felt like, I had one person at that time try to shame me. And in the past, I would have just let it all in. I would have been like, oh God, wow, whatever you're saying must be true. And this time I sat there while he was doing that. And I'm like, you're lying. Like, I mean, I just thought it. And I thought to myself, I totally see what you're doing. I see that
Yeah.
you're trying to deflect your shame onto me. And guess what? There's an invisible force field between us right now, and it's my anger. And it's not going to penetrate. None of that shame is going to stick. It's not going to penetrate. And I actually held him accountable, and he ended up getting fired later. So something shifted because what I wasn't able to do that in the past. And that is very much a big part of why I fell into such a profound years long depression is because I just took in however someone viewed me. I'm like, oh, well, you must be right.
Must be
And
true.
that anger gives us, when we connect with our anger, when we dislodge the shame, we start trusting ourselves. We start trusting ourselves and we start having like a healthy skepticism of everyone else. Not to say that other people don't see truth, but we need the healthy skepticism to be like, I don't know what you're saying. Like you have your own bias, buddy, and you might be coming from it from a malicious place, or you might just not see things clearly, but I don't agree. Here's what I know to be true about me, right? And we can stay with ourselves.
Okay. All right. We got some deep shit here. So, do they commingle, or are you saying that? And I'm guessing there's nuances to it, but if someone is full in shame, are they also able to feel anger at the same time? And because I imagine what you felt if you didn't have anger there, I feel like if all of a sudden you feel anger as a person who previously was feeling shame, that could feel very shocking. Like, what do I do with this new? Because that is a physical, how you said, like in there's stuff in the gut, your body feels that. How do we handle that then? Can
Yeah.
they commingle also? Like, do they happen at the same time? What's that like?
So, yeah. So I think the relationship between anger and shame, like I said, we can't really fully have the healthy anger if we're full of shame. And so as we dislodge the shame, we're going to reconnect naturally and it's going to feel really natural and intuitive and we'll trust it. But people with a lot of shame absolutely have a lot of anger, but that's not their healthy anger.
I got you.
So there's healthy anger, which is, we said we'd meet at this time. You're 15 minutes late, right? That's healthy anger. That's me saying what's going on. Then the unhealthy anger I call deflective or reactive anger. Let's call it reactive anger. So someone with a lot of shame is going to have a lot of reactive anger because if you're speaking what is true, they don't want to hear it, right? The truth hurts. And so, when you encounter someone who has a lot of that reactive anger, as angry as they get at you and try to gaslight you and try to like deflect the shame onto you and make you out to be the perpetrator and they're the victim and all the things that they do, the good thing you can know is that you are onto something. That's their tell. Because the fact that they're feeling shame and need to react means that you are speaking truth.
Yeah. I'm going to stay away from, there's too many. We have hit a landmine in my life. But okay. So lots of shame, unhealthy anger.
Yes. Yes.
Mostly. And then when you have, do we all have, do we all have some level of shame probably?
Yeah,
With
I
healthy
do.
anger? Okay.
We all have some level of shame. And shame
Okay.
often comes most often in childhood from some level of neglect. Just even emotional neglect creates a lot of shame because children, if they're not getting the emotional attunement that they need at all times, they just naturally think, oh, that's because of me. Like I'm not enough. Right. And so that's the shame. They don't have the objectivity to say, my mom is actually depressed right now. That's her problem that she's not able to emotionally attune to me.
Yeah. Sometimes I learn things and I wish I could hit rewind. I'm guessing we all probably feel this way. And like, could I get a do-over, please? There's so many things where it's like, damn, wouldn't it have been nice to know these things back
Are you
then?
talking about with your kids?
Yeah, it's like it would be, or even, conversations or relationships where it's like, oh, that part of me was running the show back then. It's like, and I know like you can repair later, but you're saying, essentially it's baked in as a young child. And if it's baked in, how do you unbake it?
Well, with our kids, we can absolutely repair it. And all the research shows that when there's repair, so there's what we call rupture, where there's a rupture in the relationship. And if a parent repairs at any age, that makes for a stronger, healthier relationship than there would have been if there'd been no rupture, which, by the way, isn't possible. But yeah, it makes us stronger because then that kid's like, oh my God, this is what you do. You apologize. And I trust my mother more. She's like a human and she's owning what she did. And I will tell you, with my daughter, I just have one kid. She's 22 now. So I shared about how I hurt her when I became depressed. So at age almost 6 is when that first depressive episode took place. And I completely emotionally neglected her. And I realized that created a lot of shame for her. And she had headaches and stomach aches probably every other day for 14 years, starting when that happened, starting at almost age 6. And she also had very severe anxiety for 14 years. So just a few years ago, when she was 19, I said, you know what, Edie, I need to let young Edie, 5-year-old Edie, know that when I emotionally neglected her, when I fell into my depressive episode, all the shame that little Edie felt, that was my shame. That was all mine. None of that was hers. And so let's have her put it in a cardboard box and give it back to me. And when I apologized, when I helped do that with her, literally that day, this is 3 years ago now, her headaches and stomach aches completely stopped and her anxiety completely ameliorated.
Damn.
That she had for 13 years.
How do you, you have the credentials to have probably a very thoughtful conversation, but the conversations also still need to happen. How do you initiate that? Because I could see that having a lot of shame come up, a lot of fear come up, and also wanting permission to have these. There's sometimes where I have one of my kiddos, she's like, you overthink, Mom. Can you just let things go? Like, just let it go. And how do you initiate these conversations to kind of bring that up? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. Honestly, she wouldn't let me even do it. So I wrote her a letter called Dear 5-year-old Edie. And I sent that. I texted it to her. I did a Google Doc and I attached it in a text. I didn't even tell her I was going to do it. I didn't follow up afterwards because that's how she was. She's like, I just let it sit. I didn't bring it up ever again until I took time. And then I, said, how did that letter feel, over time? But yeah, it was super messy. I was not her favorite person. For a long time. So I had to do it on her terms and respect her boundaries. But I knew I had to take back that shame. I knew that that was instrumental. A lot of times we'll apologize. That's not enough. It's not.
Yeah.
They literally have to dislodge their own shame and give it back to us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think naming it too is probably really helpful. Okay. And I like how, like you said, doing it on their terms. And there's some instances that I think of that it's like, how would they want me to approach these things? And maybe it's not even a kid, but just in general, there's, those situations that kind of will pop up when you're not sleeping in the middle of the night. Like, hey,
yeah,
I think you should think about this now. It's like, how do we have these conversations? Okay. All right. So one of the things, thank you, by the way, and for sharing kind of your lived experience too, is we all have some version of that. And it's hard to look at and it's hard to feel, and sort of either we've experienced it as kids or as parents dealing. I mean, because if you think, like, we're just all dealing with our own shit out here. We don't know how to do this.
Well, I don't think we should feel shame, because we're going to fuck up our kids. Like, we're humans, and our parents fucked us up because they're humans. And it doesn't mean anyone's a monster. There definitely are plenty of monsters, but the rest of us are just humans trying to figure it out. And we make mistakes. We get depressed, we can have regret, but there's no shame. We're all human here. Let's just all be human together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I joke with my children and people in general, saying, like, we should be born, like, in addition to a pediatrician, we should all be born with a therapist, because we all, like, it should be hand in hand. I mean, truly, it's like mental health and physical health. I don't know why that is not like, it should just come with the package. I try to have some levity with it with my kids, and also, like, acknowledge, like, yeah, we all know we're all fucking up. And I'll joke every once in a while, like, this might be a future therapy topic for you, because shit gets crazy. Okay. So one of the things that has been coming up for me, so I was at a dinner a couple weeks ago, and it's women that I've known for the last 10 years plus. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about current world events and how just everything feels shitty, and the sort of anger that comes up. One of them, it was very interesting. Well, there's actually two stories I want to share. One of the women said, I just don't know what to do with this anger, and I've never felt this before. And I was like, well, what do you mean by that? And she legitimately, like, because it's such a living through right now, it feels very overwhelming, and like the anger sort of hits you when you're not ready for it. And this particular person works with children who are not, like, they could be immigrants, they could be different national, like all different kids. And there's a lot of anger that comes with that as an educator. And she had expressed that this was something that she had never felt before, which was so interesting to me, because like I said, I have felt this sort of, just in life, I'm very comfortable with anger. And this, even where we are in life right now, in the world, I shared, I think last year, probably on the podcast, how there's been two other times in my life in just the last 10 years that I have felt nearly this exact, not necessarily for the world at large, but for my small community and home, these exact same feelings. So I'm very comfortable, meaning I have been here before, so it's not shocking to me. But then another woman shared, I'm so angry and I don't know what to do with it. So there's the sentiment of, I'm so angry, and where does one put the anger, which goes back to when I saw the Alanis Morissette saying the quote, when she shared, it's the underpinning of activism. So you have collectively these, and there's men too, but I think mostly women listen to my podcast. Just this, I mean, I have, like, there's rage in me, and how do we sit with it? Like, what is this? For me, it's a wave, and I just ride the damn thing.
So going to anger as healthy as an emotion that wants to move us. Absolutely, activism. If we didn't have anger, we would just let dictators overtake the world. Like, we would just let any bully away at any, vulnerable person. So anger, it can be so healthy to move us, right? That said, I would also want, like, if someone said to me, I don't know what to do with this anger, I've never felt this before. As a therapist, what I've learned now is I would say, what makes you most infuriated right now? What is it specifically? And it might take them, a few minutes to figure out what it is. I would want to pinpoint what with all the chaos. So maybe, for one person, like you're saying, this woman who works with kids who are vulnerable, maybe it's a particular child that she has seen suffering, right? Or imagining will suffer. And maybe what's underneath that is she's been that child. Like she really identifies with that herself, right? And that is a gift, but it's also a liability. We have to look at both sides. So, because when we are identifying with a vulnerable population, it's so good to empathize for them because we've maybe been in their shoes or feel like we can identify. But we might also be really triggered at the same time because we're not able to distinguish ourselves from those children or that child. And now we're feeling responsible for them. Now we're losing that I'm responsible to them, but I'm actually not responsible for them. Because if we're identifying and it's out of our awareness, right? Do you see how that could happen?
Yeah. What does that feel like in the body?
When we are losing that boundary?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Yeah. I would say when we're triggered, it's disproportionate to the present situation. So,
okay.
Right. So it's healthy to have some anger, but if we're like, that's all I can think about, I'm losing sleep, I can't eat, whatever, we're triggered and it is disproportionate. And now it's hurting us and it's not helping that kid that I'm not sleeping. Right. So you see how it can get really unhealthy. Mm-hmm. So if we can distinguish, why am I having this level of reaction? Well, I was that kid and that happened to me and I need to process that anger. That's, down below the surface. I need to process that I was bullied like that I was vulnerable. And I need to give that shame back to my bully. I need to process this anger at them and maybe at myself because maybe I abandoned myself too. A lot of us have a lot of anger at ourselves that we need to process. So once we do that, then our anger is just the healthy anger. Does that make sense?
Yep. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. Some of these I've been working on. So I have said, all right, I'm very angry. I have worked through, I'm sure there's probably some unhealthy anger still in there, but there was probably 2-3 years ago, I realized like, oh, I'm actually really angry at myself. That was shocking to me because it was other people who had done the things, but I was angry at myself for feeling like I allowed these things to happen to me. And that was a really powerful realization. Like, oh, okay. So one, it sounds like realizing what is so triggering about this. Although when you say, is it proportionate? It feels like nothing is proportionate right now because everything is fucking insane. So
everything is.
But I understand what you're saying. Like, is anything actually happening with this specific situation close to home, what I'm really upset with right now, if you are losing sleep? And that's something I just want to highlight too. If you are making yourself so unwell, you are not of service to anyone because you are unwell. How do people do that? Like, I know yesterday I was like, I need to get off TikTok because it is making me unwell. Did I get off TikTok? Yeah. No, I did not. No, I thought, you know what? Just one more night of lost sleep, just one more. And then today I set some timers and I was like, girl, no, thank you. So I did that. But some people, you can't put a timer on your job. You can't put that sort of boundary. So if they're noticing this is unhealthy, what do we do with it?
Well, I mean, people ask me, how are you a therapist? How do you have that boundary? Because I hear very dark things on a daily basis. There are definitely nights that it takes me a while to fall asleep, but we have to have those boundaries. And I think a big part, honestly, Alecia, is I'm at the place now where I see even the darkest stuff. Like, you and I, we're human. We've lived through some dark stuff. We all have, if we're going to be honest. And the dark stuff is as unfair as it is, as infuriating as it is, it produces such beauty. it can produce such beauty. That doesn't mean I don't want to spare people from that. Surely I do. But I also know what can come out the other side is so much goodness. And so I see that now, that nothing is all good or all bad, that everything truly is bittersweet. And so having that perspective really helps. I'll have clients where I'm like, oh my God, I want to go. I just want to sleep like for 24 hours right now, hearing what you just shared. But then I see like the goodness in their lives that comes out of the badness. Right. And and I think right now with what's going on in the world, we feel this loss of agency. We definitely have a loss of agency. We're losing our democracy. I mean, that is an agency that we're losing, right? But for us to say, you know what, I do have agency. I have my voice. I can speak truth. I do have agency. These are the things I can do. I can empower other people to be angry and to have that agency, right? And how can I reclaim that agency? How are other people reclaiming their agency in smaller ways, right? What's happening? To see the whole picture, the good, bad, and the ugly, because there always is good. There really is. And I don't mean that in like a toxic positivity way. I'm the opposite of that. I'm like, we need to see the darkness. We do. We should never be in denial. But we also can't be in denial of the goodness, and we can't be blind to that.
Sometimes that can be hard when there is so much ick that we're experiencing right now, and we do feel a loss of agency. It can be hard to feel like it's okay to settle into that bright spot or the goodness of that could come. I mean, because if you think, one of the things that I have kind of been holding on to, I am very much into astrology and just woo-woo shit. And one of the things that they have been saying for the last 5 years is like, shit's going to fall apart. Like everything is going to crumble to the ground, and then it's going to be built back up. And I know, I mean, that's essentially kind of what you were just saying, is that like bad things and then good things will come out of it. So yes, I appreciate that. I know that my life is a living testament of that.
That's right.
However, when we are in the darkness, it is hard to, I mean, we can see the cracks of light through, but it is hard to think of the goodness that will come in 10 years or 20 years or 5 years or whatever the hell off. So how do we be now? I mean, if somebody, because I'm just thinking like because when I asked, what does it feel like in your body? Because I think our bodies get so hijacked with, even if it's healthy anger, of like, how the fuck do I get this out of me? What do I do? You said, to move. How do people start moving it through them, or what does that look like?
Well, so I just 2 podcasts ago, I did an episode on birth, and I had a home birth, and I was trained before the birth, like, just embrace the discomfort. They don't call it pain. I'm like, oh, it's pain, but let's call it discomfort. Sure. Embrace it. Embrace it. Don't resist it. And that helps the birth process. Otherwise you're fighting. You're actually going to shut down the birthing process. So, but it's birth, but something's beautiful is born, right? And we opt into it, like knowing the pain that's going to be there, right? So if we can view what's happening now, I mean, that is actually how I view it, is that I think humanity is going through a rebirth. I really do. And I think we're in, deep labor right now. And it is painful. And it's like the tunnel, the darkness that you're talking about. But to know, I mean, I know even from recently, I read how someone in Minneapolis, he was saying how he connecting with neighbors and other people in Minneapolis, and they're all hugging each other. All these people he wouldn't have anything in common with normally have said, I love you, thank you. And like they're making each other meals and giving him hugs. And like, it's crazy the level of unity that comes out of things like this. And it made me cry when I read his account. So even we are seeing it even on a micro scale. We've also seen like documentaries of like World War II or, the Holocaust, where you learn about this one person who like did all this stuff for people and like saved all these lives, right? And when we cry and we're like, oh my God, there was so much beauty, but no one could see that, or people did experience at the time, but we, the world watching it, wouldn't have seen that. All we would have seen is the darkness, right? But you find out later, this goodness came out of that, right? So some is just time. We're not going to see it, but we can trust and we can hope. And so holding on to that hope that something is being born.
Yeah. Okay. I get this. How do we find hope then when we're being overloaded, intentionally overloaded with negativity? And I'm using negativity lightly. Like that's not the proper term for what we're experiencing right now. How do we, because I'm guessing this has to be an intentional practice, and I'm guessing it has to be made daily. And this is not I just want to be very clear that when I'm saying this is not to take the place of any sort of using your voice or activism or moving this through you. This is in tandem with that. But how does that happen? Because I can see that being very difficult.
Hope is a choice, but we have evidence for it every single day. So, we just got to open our eyes and look around and say, you know what? Life trumps death. Good trumps evil. That's what makes us cry at a great movie, at a great documentary. It does. It always wins in the end. And so we just have to intuitively hold on to that and say it will this time too, and hope is life. I mean, we are not going to have a life without hope. So we need to stay alive. All of us need to stay alive internally. And that's how we bring more life to the world.
Yeah. Oh, I really like that. Hope is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And a choice that needs to be made probably more than once a day to focus on it and maybe look for it. I wonder, do you know of any, this is very much aside, but I know I'm subscribed to many folks who are giving accounts or are versed in history or all the things. Have you heard of anybody that's giving hopeful information? Like kind of like the story the account that you read. Have you heard of anything that's like dedicated to hope right now?
About what's going on right now?
Yeah,
you mean
currently? Yeah, because that's just so much in front and center in our world, in our life.
Yeah,
no, I'm gonna look for that.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
There's got to be somebody out there that's like, you know what? I'm going to document the hopeful things. What would it look like for somebody to do that within their own life? You said it's a choice, but like, what would that look like in practice?
Yeah. So I'm not a meditation person. I'm a reflection person. I don't think we do best when we clear our minds, but when we kind of clear our minds with the intention to let things just come up and then we reflect on those, not to necessarily keep the mind clear, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And as we can reflect on our own life, we're going to see lots of evidence for hope. We're going to see, oh my God, that nightmare I went through, my own depression, where I attempted suicide, I wouldn't re-experience that for a single hour if I had a choice. But I also am grateful I went through it because it's given me all this wisdom to help all these clients who would be in the same place, right?
Yeah.
So we can see that hope. That is, we have to cultivate it though.
What would it look like to cultivate that as a daily practice?
I think just like our intentionality, I think, going back to agency, looking for hope, reflecting on our own lives to see the hidden hope, to see the hidden goodness, to see the dandelion growing through the cracks of the cement, just seeing, oh God, this is everywhere. It's in my life. I see it in other people's lives. You know what I really like? The metaphor of, have you heard of kintsugi, the Japanese ceramics?
Oh, yes.
Where they intentionally break the ceramic like a bowl, and then they glue it back together with like a gold glue. It has like gold in it. And it's called kintsugi. And it's so much more valuable once it's healed with that gold glue. I mean, it's so expensive and so much more desirable. And it's like, yeah, that's how we all are individually and collectively. Our brokenness is beautiful and it brings all this light, right? If we allow it. So if we can kind of have that paradigm, then we can see the cracks. We can see the light shining through. We can see that in ourselves, in our past, and the history of the world and what's going on now.
Okay. Thank you. I know this is going to hit home for so many people.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that I always feel like at the end of each episode, I'm like, my hope for you. Because I feel like there's just, especially this, because anger I feel like it's tricky. And I love how you have weaved hope into it, because if we can hold anger and have it move us in a healthy way while also holding on to hope, I can think of, there's so many things. Even just having these conversations, I feel like brings hope, because we're shining light. It's not being ignored. It's being talked about, and giving hopefully other people language to talk about and move forward the moving part of it. And I do hope that through this, I really just love how you said hope is a choice. Mm-hmm. And if we can choose hope and anger thoughtfully.
And I'll add, if we don't choose hope, we're letting the bullies win. So that is how we have agency. That's how we fight back, is we don't let them take away our hope.
Yeah, which feels, I believe that, and I feel that, and that it's one of those, maybe you can explain it. It feels like friction in the body. Like it just feels like, yes, I know that. And also maybe that's a shame thing, like guilt about feeling. I know after my brother died, he died in an accident, I felt guilty for being happy. And it feels much of the same. Like there's so much ickiness happening, and being okay with having that kind of levity and hope.
We need that though.
Yeah.
So we need to stay alive inside.
Yeah.
Or else they win.
Yes. All right, people, you hear that? Stay alive inside, and hope is needed. Yes. Like that's super, super important. Not at all where I expected this going. And I am so thankful, because it is so true and such a needed message.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is there anything else we went through a lot of different spaces. Is there anything else that you think would be important, maybe that we didn't touch on, or that you think would just be helpful for people to know, take away?
Just the last thing I want to say is, for years, I think I thought that my flourishing, that me being true to myself, was kind of like a selfish thing. You're talking about the guilt that you had when you had happiness, right? Like we have these weird paradigms that we don't know are there, right? And, where I live now, I have these 2 trees in my backyard. They're about 100 feet tall. And I look at this flourishing tree that in the summer produces so much shade, right? And I think there is nothing selfish about flourishing, because a healthy human, a human who is true to herself, a human who is free to disappoint the hell out of everyone else in order to be true to herself, there's nothing inherently selfish, because a flourishing tree and a flourishing human create shade, habitat for thousands of creatures, even food, and the roots go so deep. And those roots, everything we've gone through in our lives, like you're saying, the things you regret, I have regrets, we have regret. Those things aren't garbage. They're compost for our roots.
Yes. I love that. Yeah. I could go on a whole thing with that, but I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah. So let's leave it at that.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. I know that this will be helpful for folks who are feeling probably stuck with anger and unsure what to do. So I really appreciate you sharing your message and kind of touching on the life that we are currently all experiencing, and how we can be moving in activism and also settling in hope and having that settle in our bodies.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Oh, real quick, will you share, I'll put it in the show notes, but will you share with people how they can hear more about you and maybe tune into your podcast?
Yeah. So my podcast is Angry at the Right Things, and it's found wherever you subscribe. And I have a YouTube as well. And then if anyone's a therapist and wants to get some trainings, continuing ed, that is the Center for Anger and Integration.
Okay. Wonderful. Awesome. Thank you. Spirit of a Badass is a Lit Path Studios podcast and is produced by Jamie Gale and Alecia Jacobson. Music by Shane Ivers. We'll be back with another inspiring interview. Until then, keep your spirits high and your energy badass.